Good evening, folks, and welcome back to Wilderness Wargaming. Today, we're going to take a look at my 5 top things that you need to have with you when you are taking children camping or going hiking, especially going hiking. So stay tuned and let's find out what they are. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and click the notifications bell for more great content from Wilderness Wargaming. All right, so number 5, and I didn't bring one in because it's too hard to hold it up here in front of the camera, but it is a proper hiking backpack for the children. Now, so like, why wouldn't you have that? You're going hiking. Well, a couple things. One, if you're going camping, it's great because then they can put all their little stuff in there and they can carry it around. If you're going on train rides or something where the kids might need some activities, it's going to be boring stretches, they can just carry it around in their backpack. Okay, but the proper hiking backpack is important because there's a temptation, especially with kids in the 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old range, when they're just getting old enough to hike, to save money and not buy a hiking backpack. They can use their old school backpack. They can use that backpack they had, Mrs. Smith's 3rd grade class in. That'll be fine because, their stuff is smaller. It'll fit. No big problem. Well, that's not a good idea. For one thing, the backpack almost certainly is actually too small because the problem is bulk. Usually, even a sleeping bag for a kid is going to be pretty big, and it's going to fill up that little backpack really quick. And then that's going to create a second problem because you got to get food in there. You got to get their extra clothes in there. And those things are usually, especially for a shorter hike that you can take little kids on, not that bad. The problem is then you're going to have a sleeping mat, and they may be carrying their own tent because if you try to take one of those big family tents, like an 8 or 10 person tent, and I usually recommend 2 capacity of people for every 1 person actually in the tent. The capacity stated is like survival capacity, not comfort capacity. Believe me, I've tried hiking with a 10-person tent. That thing was 27 pounds of just tent. So you may want the kids carrying their own little tiny tents that are much, much lighter. But those backpacks don't have straps on the bottom or the top to strap sleeping pads and tents onto, which is a good place to put them. And they don't have the space inside to put them there either. So the school backpacks are not a good idea. The second problem with the school backpacks is that they often do not have hip belts or have inadequate hip belts. And you need that hip belt when you're hiking, even for little kids, to get that weight off their shoulders and onto their hips. You can tell when a kid's just, their weight isn't supported because they're constantly doing this, hiking the backpack up and up higher onto their shoulders, trying to get the weight because it's pulling back and down. And that means the hip belt is not doing its job, or it isn't there at all if it just doesn't have one. And that's something you got to look at too when you're picking the backpack out for the kid, especially for very slim children. Even a kid's backpack or small adult one, cinched all the way down, that hip belt may not all the way grab their little hips, and you might have to find a way to pad it a little more in order to give them the support that they need, because they're smaller and their stuff is heavy, but they got a smaller body to carry it with. And those little skinny, bony shoulders, they get tired carrying that weight around without the hip belt support. Okay, number 4, and I also didn't show it because I couldn't find, we used to have a bunch of them and they got lost over the years. I need to get new ones, but it's a whistle, just a cheap little whistle. The whistle is a good thing to have to carry around, just in case they get separated. They can blow the whistle. Now, kind of a good item for anybody to have out in the woods, but even around campgrounds, it may be a good idea for kids to have a whistle if they're off running around by themselves. Just on the very, very, very off chance, I've never run into anything like this, God forbid. But just the off chance somebody's giving them a hard time, some adult or older kid is bullying them or doing more inappropriate things or trying to, or something, that situation where they think they're in trouble, they could blow that whistle. And that'll get attention from somebody around a campground real quick. If they're off in the woods, they have to go off the woods to go to the bathroom, whatever, they get turned around, blow the whistle. Now, number 3 is, this doesn't pertain as much to campgrounds, so they'll usually give you a map at a lot of campgrounds, but maps. Okay. The reason you want a paper map, even if you're navigating with something like, do I have this right side up? Yeah, sure do. Okay. Even if you're navigating with something like Guthook or AllTrails or anything like that, or using a GPS, is in addition to giving you a lot of something that isn't dependent on batteries, it gives you something to show the kids a little bit more easily. sometimes the apps can be a little squirrely, difficult to use, stuff like that. With the map, you can show the kids the map. You can just lay it on the ground while you're eating, whatever. They can pass it around. They can hold it. They can take a turn. Even if you don't need the thing, you can bring the map just for them to hold and carry. Now, yes, paper's additional weight. And maybe this wouldn't be great if you're taking a super long hike, but on one that's just a few days, bring it along. Now, depending on what kind of map you can get, also this may have additional information that's real handy on it for you, because it may contain information that's not in all the trail programs. But I think for kids, just giving them that paper map is a great way for them to feel like they have some kind of way to look at what's going on their own. And then you don't have to worry about it. Either they don't have phones or not getting a separate install or copy or paying for Guthook 5 different times or something like that. I think that's pretty great. You can also teach them, if you know what you're doing, to use a map with a compass and do a little bit of basic orienteering. And if you don't know how to do that, you're on the trail, you need to find out. I know that a lot of people, there's back and forth about navigation methods. I learned how to navigate in the Army with a military grid reference system and a compass, and I was not a lieutenant who ever got lost in the woods. I knew where I was, and I knew how to use it. In fact, I had to teach NCOs how to use it occasionally. Any of you out there who are an NCO, I got news for you. It's not always you guys following the lost lieutenant around. Every once in a while, it's the other way around. Number 2, 550 cord. Now, you probably want this stuff anyhow, because it has a gazillion uses, which I won't go through. But this has 2 essential uses on a hike with kids. One is water crossing. You have enough of this, what you can do is loop it around a tree on the near side, and then the first adult going across takes 2 ends and goes to the far side, holding both ends, and takes it to a tree on the other side, and then just ties it around. Then, if you have little kids that need to go across the water and you're worried they're going to slip, they can just hold on to it. Now, this is just to give them some confidence, help them steady themselves. You probably should have an adult go with them if there's any of that unsteadiness, but it can make them feel a little better. Now, you're not going to clip onto it. You're not going to do anything like that. This is not some kind of Ranger rope bridge you're doing here. This is just a thing for confidence. And the reason it's important is sometimes water that is not that difficult for adults to get across may seem intimidating to a little kid, and it might make them feel better to hold on to it. And the reason you double loop it is so when everybody's across, you just untie it on the far side and then you pull the whole thing back. You don't have 550 cord laying all over the woods. So that's use number 1. Use number 2 is at night, you tie one end of this to one of the posts of the parent's tent. And then you just coil it up there and everybody knows where that 550 cord is. And you want a bright color like this. You don't want to use some olive, drab, green camo military stuff. Get bright yellow, orange, red, something like that. Whenever anybody needs to go to the bathroom, and adults can do this too, because you can get turned around in the woods at night as well, you're supposed to go 200 feet away from your sleep area for leave no trace principles. Have 200 feet of this stuff, have them walk off in the woods until they get to the end, and then they do their business, and then they find the thing and come back. Now, they should all have a headlamp or a flashlight. If they drop it, they just look around on the ground for the very bright color. It's easy to find. And they pick it up and they coil it back up and they put it down there. In the morning, you just coil it up, tie it up in its loop, you put it back in your backpack, and you're off down the trail. And number 1, most important thing that you absolutely must take on any excursion with children into the wilderness is this stuff, Pepto-Bismol. You absolutely have to have this, or maybe the store brand if you want to risk it. I always like to have genuine Pepto. I guarantee you somebody will either get diarrhea or a horrendous stomach ache if you don't take this stuff. Now, if you do take it, they probably won't, but either way, it served its purpose. But do not take children into the wilderness without Pepto-Bismol for any reason. I wouldn't even walk from one end of the campground to the other without knowing there was some Pepto-Bismol in the car or the tent. All right, so that's all I have to say on that. Thanks for watching. Once again, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and click the notifications bell for more great content from Wilderness Wargaming, and we'll see you back here very soon.